Hello there, you're watching Newegg TV. I'm Jennifer and I've just been playing a little BioShock Infinite on this AORUS X7. In this video I will be taking a deeper look at the AORUS X7. I'm going to peel away the layers on this notebook whose name is inspired by Horus, the Egyptian god of kings, and show you all of the complexity hidden inside what can be considered a very sleek form factor gaming notebook. The outside of the AORUS has a full aluminum constructed chassis, and it has the falcon head here in the middle for its symbol, and this is of course inspired by Horus, again the falcon god of Egyptian lore. Across the top we have a measurement of 16.85 inches by 12 inches by 0.9 inches thick, so that's under an inch, and also in millimeters that's 428 by 305 by 22.9. The weight of this notebook is actually 6.4 pounds, which is pretty light relative to some other gaming notebooks which can weigh in between 8 and 10 pounds, and that comes out to 2.9 kilograms if you're in the metric system. On the inside we have a 17.3 inch full HD screen, so that's 1920 by 1080 LCD. Immediately above the keyboard are two ventilation intakes separated by the power button, which has the AORUS Falcon crest. The keyboard itself is backlit LED. It has three different settings for brightness. It has a 100%, 50%, and off completely. Down this side you can see the macro keys. You get 5 of them, which are programmable, each one with 5 different profiles for 25 different macros available. Below the keys is a glass touchpad, which feels a little bit different than you might be used to, but if you use a tablet or smartphone regularly, it won't throw you too much. However, I do recommend locking it using the function keys at the top of the keyboard while you're gaming or using a mouse so that you don't accidentally touch the mouse pad while you're gaming. Taking a look at the left side ports, first up we have that subwoofer that I talked about with a ventilation fin array here. Next up is the SD card slot. We have 2 USB 3.0 ports, an HDMI port, and also a mini display port. In the back you can actually see the cooling aluminum fin array through this ventilation hole here. Across the back there are 2 more ventilation holes and also 2 USB 2.0 ports in the center with the power port. Taking a look at the right side now, we have a Kensington lock, our LAN port here, which is running the Killer E2201 networking card at 1000 Mbps, also another HDMI port, a D-sub port, and 1 USB 3.0 port. Also, we have the headphone line out and microphone line in. I should mention here also that this laptop is capable of running a multi-display up to 3 additional displays besides its own screen. Now I'm going to remove the back panel for a look at the insides. Alright, now let's take a look at the inside. First up, we have our system storage. So this particular notebook can ship in a few different configurations, but all of them will have a 2.5 inch hard disk drive. It will either be a 500 gig, 750 gig, or 1 terabyte drive. Also underneath that you're going to get 2 SSDs, and those are either going to be 128 gigs or 256 gigs. Moving on now to the system memory. Now again, this notebook will ship with different configurations, but you will either get 4 gigs or 8 gigs. There are 2 expansion slots for a maximum of 32 gigabytes of DDR3L memory. Here is the CPU. Now this system is going to be running a 4th gen Intel i7-4700HQ, which will be clocked at 2.4 to 3.4 gigahertz. Following the heat pipes away from the CPU, you can see that there are 2 fans covering the GPUs. Now this is a dual GPU system running in SLI. Those will be the NVIDIA G4 765M, each one running a memory configuration of GDDR5 and a memory size of 4 gigs. The bus width is 128 bits. The core clock is 850 with boost, and also each one is running 768 CUDA cores. The architecture is based on Kepler. This version of the AORUS X7 ships running Windows 8. Now that we've looked at all the hardware, let's run some benchmarks. First up, here's a list of all the specs on the AORUS. I covered most, but I will point out here that this model is running 2 8GB sticks of DDR3L memory and the GeForce 331.97 driver. All tests were run at the native resolution of 1920 by 1080. The first benchmark I ran was 3D Mark Extreme. This is a synthetic benchmarking system. I set it to Extreme instead of Performance and adjusted the resolution to 1920 by 1080. The first number that I got is obviously the Mark 11 score, which came up as X2424, which means if you go to the 3dmark.com website, you'll see that this particular gaming notebook actually did 12% better than most other gaming notebooks that they have tested, but still slightly below a high-end gaming PC. With that in mind, I decided to gear my other benchmarks to those settings. Now, if we take a look a little further here at the GPU temperature, we'll see a temperature max at 62 degrees Celsius and also a CPU temperature max at 96 degrees Celsius. Overall, we had a GPU core clock of 901.5, and you may remember earlier I mentioned that this particular notebook ships with a boosted core clock. So here you can see what that boost truly translates to. It jumps from 850 to 901. Also, you get a memory clock of 1002.4 megahertz. Moving on now to the first real-world synthetic benchmark we ran was the BioShock Infinite. We ran it with the DirectX 11 without diffusion settings, and the results look something like this. We have a max FPS of 273.65, a min FPS of 7.88, and an overall average of 70.07. Our GPU core clock, you can see, consistent with the 3D Mark 11 results, is boosted to 901.5 megahertz and a memory clock of 1002.4 megahertz. Also, the GPU temperature stayed consistent at about 63 degrees Celsius. Over at the CPU temperatures, we're seeing, again, under load, we have a temperature of 91 degrees Celsius. All right, the last real-world synthetic benchmark I ran was for Metro Last Light. Look at the settings here. I put it at DirectX 11, the quality high, texture filtering set to AF4X, motion blur at normal, tessellation at normal, and scene at D6. So part of the reason I chose these settings instead of maxing out everything was based on the 3D Mark 11 scores, placing it in between a high-end gaming notebook and a high-end gaming PC. So I just wanted it to be the most realistic results you could expect while you're in gameplay. So taking a look again, we have an average frame rate of 36.5, a max frame rate of 124.66, and a minimum frame rate of 14.95. Also, you can see the GPU core clock staying consistent at 901.5 megahertz and the memory clock right there at 1002.4 megahertz. GPU temperature also consistent at 62 degrees Celsius. The CPU temperature seems to be running right around 95-96 degrees Celsius under load. Well, thank you for joining me on this journey to the insides of the AORUS X7 gaming notebook. If you liked this video or found it helpful, please like it and subscribe to our various YouTube channels. Until next time, I'm Jennifer, and thank you for watching Newegg TV.